Nothing works better than support resistance. A lot of people challenge me on this, and I say to you, if you were to challenge me on whether or not anything works better than support resistance, I want you to ask yourself what every other trading strategy boils down to. No matter which trading approach you're using, you are waiting for price to either bounce at a specific arbitrary area on the chart that you've drawn, or you're waiting on price to break whatever specific arbitrary area on the chart that you have drawn. It doesn't matter whether you're using trend lines. It doesn't matter whether you're using support resistance like me. It doesn't matter whether you're using Fibonacci, waiting for it to pull the 61.8, or stochastic oscillators, or any type of other indicator you're using. It all boils down to, is price going to bounce somewhere or continue and break through somewhere on the chart? In this video today, I'm going to break down exactly how I trade and why. The only thing I use is support resistance. Now, if you follow my free Telegram channel, I'll put a link in the description if you're not in there. It's just where I call my trades for free every single day. Been running it for 8 years. If you're in my Telegram channel, you always notice that my charts are very, very simple, right? It's black and white charts. Sometimes I don't even draw in the support resistance zones because of how obvious they are. If price gets to an area where it's bounced at before multiple times, I just draw a little horizontal rectangle there. Then if price gets to that area and its support, I will buy. I'll put a stop loss below and a target above, and then I'll use my discretion to manage the trade based on whether it goes into profit or loss. Over the past course of 6 months that I've been trading this account since I started it, again, every single one of these trades have been called live. I started with $350,000, and before the heavy swaps and commissions, I've made $327,000 in profit over the course of the past 6 months. And that is with win streaks, that is with losing streaks, that is with every single thing combined. I still sit in a net profit, and I just use support resistance. Now, the reason support resistance works so well, in my opinion, is because you don't have to go through a bunch of explanations. You don't have to play a lot of mental gymnastics. You don't have to try to convince yourself and psych yourself out that one thing works better than another, you should do this and that. It's very simple, and it's not complicated at all, and that allows you to be able to duplicate the same things over and over and over in a simple, predictable, consistent, sustainable way. There's just nothing easier than support resistance, in my opinion. Now, it doesn't matter which time frame you use. I use the daily and I use the 1 hour. So if price gets to a major daily zone, I look to buy or sell. Generally, I'll risk more on those trades because they're a little bit more reliable in my experience. And on the 1 hour chart, I will still look for trades, and I'll basically use it in tandem with the daily chart to try to find trading opportunities. But it all revolves around placing trades if it comes to a clear resistance zone where it might bounce, and same thing, I'll buy at a clear support zone if it looks like it might bounce. So I'm in 2 trades right now, and I'm going to break both of these down. I'm going to share with you all the details why. So I posted these on my free Telegram channel a little bit ago, so 12:38. So about 20 minutes ago, I posted in here that Euro GBP is ready for sells, and Euro JPY is also ready for sells. So with this being the case, what I've elected to do is I sold both of these at resistance here. I put a stop loss above the zone and a target below the zone. And for both of these trades, I'm risking $20,000 on each of them. So I'm going to see exactly what happens whenever price gets to these zones. And whenever price does get to the zones and start to bounce, meaning it gets to the zone and it starts to kind of go away from the zone and pull away, I generally just enter a trade. So for all intents and purposes, my wife just left me. Okay, so I'm trading support resistance. My wife just walked away. So for all intents and purposes, all I do is when price gets to a zone, I basically enter immediately, just provided price doesn't break past the zone immediately. So for these trades, let me show you exactly how I structured it. This is on my Discord server. These are the current trades right now. Euro GBP sits around break even, and Euro JPY sits in a little bit of profit. So what I do is price gets here into the zone. I enter. You can see my entry is right there at the resistance zone. You don't really want to enter if price has already left the zone. If it gets into a resistance zone and already starts to bounce away and it's outside of the zone, like to the bottom of it, by the time you find the trade and by the time it's rejected, don't take the trade just because the risk structure gets all screwed up. You'll be entering below the zone, your stop loss still has to go above, then your profit target has to be a lot lower, and that just makes it a little bit more difficult to actually have your profit target hit. So what I'll do is I'll just not do that, and instead what I will do is I will put a stop above the zone, target below, and then I'll just take the trade like that. So it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. That was the Euro GBP trade. I also called this Euro JPY trade earlier in here. I sold at resistance, put a stop above, target below. And on each of these trades, I've risked $20,000. Look how simple it is to structure the trade. Look how simple my charts are. It's just basically black and white. It's a black background with white candles, and I just do the same thing over and over and over again on repeat. And I make money hand over fist doing this over and over and over. So whenever you're going to approach trading and you're going to use different trading strategies, you're going to experiment with a bunch of different stuff, you're going to try all sorts of stuff, just remember, every single thing is basically going to come down to asking the question, is price going to bounce at a particular region or is it going to break it? You'll notice I also use alerts so that whenever price gets into a zone, I get notified when price gets there. And once price gets there and I get notified, I can then look to determine whether or not to take the trade. I don't enter when price has already gone past the zone. So for example, like I explained for the sells, this is a buy example. If I were to enter up here with a stop below and a target above, for a 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio, what that means is that price has to go all the way there to get that 1-to-1. I want you to compare what that looks like to this right here. Imagine I do the same thing, but instead I just enter inside the support resistance zone, and then my profit target at 1-to-1 only has to go right there. The same trade, the same risk, right? The same trading idea, the exact same idea of it bounce, price comes into the zone and I'm thinking it might bounce at it. That same idea, I can have an easier trade if I enter at the zone and it just pops up for 1-to-1. I still risk like 10K, 20K, 50K, whatever it is, depending on if it's daily or the 1 hour that I'm trading it off of. I can still risk the same amount of money, but on one of them, if it bounces and I've entered at the zone, it just has to bounce a little bit for me to be profitable. If I wait for it to bounce away from the zone and then enter late after it's already left the zone, now the target has to be all the way up here. It just makes it a lot more of a pain in the butt to trade, and it's not something that I like doing. So all I do is I draw the major support resistance zones, generally just the one that's above and below price. And then as long as I'm doing that, I know that as soon as price gets to one of the zones, whichever way it goes, I'll be able to buy or sell. You can also see the next resistance zone I have up here on the daily chart for Euro GBP is up here. This would be a trade that I risk like anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 on. Again, just because they work out a little bit more reliably in my experience. So I've got my alerts all set up. I'm just waiting for things to play out. And then I just do the same thing over and over and over again. What you'll notice is that whenever you're trading on the daily chart, you'll get trades like this where they set up, every now and then. You'll usually get a couple trades a week trading on the daily chart. But with that, there's a very small amount of trading opportunities. So if you want, what you can do is you can use really clear zones on the 1 hour as well. You can do this on 1 hour, 4 hour. It's all kind of like, as long as you're just taking everything into account and factoring in everything, all the time frames, you can still take trading opportunities on whatever time frame you want. Even little stuff like this, right, where price just comes into a little 1 hour resistance zone. You'll generally, as long as it's a clear enough zone, you'll get a couple good bounces. And as long as you're structuring risk, every now and then you'll get your stop loss tagged out. It'll go up above the zone, hit the stop loss, then come back below the zone. And then, you lost the trade, but you were still right about it. But a lot of the times you can still get pretty good bounces. And if your take profit's only 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, and you enter at the zone and the stop loss is just on the other side of it and take profit's just below it, it makes things so much easier to structure trades. I've been doing this for a decade. Okay, I've made millions of dollars trading Forex and crypto and stocks combined. And all I do is just use support resistance zones. I've tried so many different things over the years, specifically the first few years that I started trading. I've tried different risk structures. I've tried different mechanics. I've tried adding to trades. I've tried cutting trades and managing it dynamically. Nothing I have found works better than just trading support resistance. And then in my experience, just using 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, holding trades if they start going to profit. And if they start going sideways or against me, then I just try to cut the trades to keep the losses a little bit smaller. Sometimes I'll get my 1-to-1 risk reward ratio hit for the stop loss. But oftentimes I don't. Like, so if you go look at my trade history, this is just a couple trades from this week, right? You look at my average winners, they hit the full 10K profit target because I was risking 10K for those trades. And then when I'm wrong, you have Euro GBP and GBP JPY up here. That was like $200 profit and this was $100 loss. So basically break even. Those would not have worked out had I held on to them. EuroCAD, NZD-USD worked out in profit. Euro USD, I closed that early, about a little more than halfway to the stop. GN and GCAD, those both hit the profit targets. GCAD, you can see here, I closed that early around break even. NZD-USD, see I closed it early, about halfway to the stop. AED-JPY, I closed it early, halfway to the stop. And then this morning, again, every time you get your stop losses hit, you can see from the red little order lines here, that hit the stop loss order. So I wasn't able to manage that. That ended up going all the way down to the stop loss last night before hilariously bouncing and then going back towards what would have been the profit target this morning. So you're going to get your stop loss hit every now and then. But hopefully you don't get your stop loss hit. You can see my wife has now returned. She's now back with me because I'm talking about like take profits hitting a little bit more than the stop losses. So you're going through your trading terminal. You can see as long as you keep your wins a little bit more than your losses, trading's incredibly simple. I'm not trying to paint this picture that it is the easiest thing in the world to do. Okay, I'll be the first to tell you 90% or more of people lose money trading. If you look at Forex.com statistics, they say 70% of their clients do not lose money. 30% of them do lose money. If we round it up to 90%, if we just round it up to 95% of people lose money, the only 5 to 10% of people actually not losing money and making money consistently trading, they're doing so because they're approaching it in a very, very specific way of structuring their risk. They're doing things in such a way that allows them to make a little bit more when they're right versus what they lose when they're wrong. I'm not even that good of a trader, but I just structure and control my risk really well. That's literally the only reason I'm profitable. I can't predict which way these damn charts are going, okay? I don't try to make it look like I'm making 1 to 10 risk reward ratios with a 50% win rate. I haven't met anyone who's good long-term trading who's doing that. Most of the people that I personally know that are profitable trading use 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 risk reward ratios, and they just make a little more when they're right versus what they lose when they're wrong. Support resistance does not give you a way of predicting which way price will go. It just gives you a way of saying, if price gets into this arbitrary little horizontal rectangle box thing I've drawn on the chart, then you can enter a trade right there. It gives you a way of saying I can structure my risk by putting a stop loss above, and I can structure where my profit target will be good at by putting a profit target below. And then if it starts going sideways, you can cut the trade early. If it starts breaking the zone and going above, you can still cut the trade early. And maybe it's halfway to the stop, so you only lose half of what the stop was instead of the full stop. And then sometimes it'll go all the way to the stop loss, it'll hit your stop loss, and then it was a losing trade, and that's that. That's what a stop loss is for. It keeps you safe, it protects your capital, it prevents you from losing your whole account on one single trade. Again, support resistance is the easiest way I found to trade Forex. If you want to watch me trade live, then just join my Telegram channel. You can follow all my trades and analysis for free in here. I've been doing this for 8 years on my Telegram channel, and you could just follow it all for free. There's a link in the description and in the pinned comment. Just check it all out. It's just there to help you guys. I started this as basically a trading journal for myself back in, I think it was summer of 2018. And over the years, I've just posted all my trades in here. I've shown all my growth in here, like as a trader, because I've tried a bunch of different stuff. It's all basically revolved around support resistance and price action. But I post it all in here so that way you can see what I'm doing and you can kind of get a feel for how I trade. And it's all for free, just like all the videos here on my YouTube channel. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was and you did hit the like button, thank you. Really appreciate that. My wife gets really proud of me whenever I get likes on my videos. So thank you for hitting the like button if you did. I will see you in the next video. Happy trading, my friends.